Hello and welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. This is Katya, and in this episode, which is our fifth episode of Celestial Satsang Season 1, we have back my dear mentor, Dr. Santhip Kanholy. Welcome back, Santhip ji.
Yeah, namaste, Katya. Namaste.
Namaste. So good to see you again. It's been a while, and a lot of people have been wondering where you were, and so I thought I better have him back on so he can, tell us what he's been up to. And I believe today he has a wonderful discussion on the planetary archetypes of the Navagraha and how we can use them to better our lives. So, without further ado, tell us how you've been. What have you been up to?
Yeah, been good, Katya. Just been busy on my end with normal projects and so forth. So it's good to be back here again, Katya. Yeah.
Thank
Now,
you.
today I want to talk about the archetypal understanding of the grahas or the planets actually. So which is it's something that astrologers take it for granted, but I think there is a deeper layer of it that deserves to be appreciated, in my opinion. So, it'll be good to at least throw some additional light on that. Now, of course, the archetypal understanding is typically attributed to Carl Jung and his way of Jungian psychology and all that. So, everyone who knows Jung is familiar with, the um, Jungian psychology aspect in which the archetypal thing, right? So you might have a typical understanding of an archetype. So how there's an energy archetype, and you can have the archetype of a hero, for instance. You might carry that hero archetype is all movies will have a hero archetype, for instance. So all movies might have a villain archetype, of instance, and so forth. So we kind of understand that for sure. It's part of our daily life actually. Now, what was interesting is that Jyotisha or in Vedic astrology, this kind of archetypal understanding is a foundation for many things actually, especially to understand deep layers of the grahas. And that's a very important point because usually we look at graha as as a planet. It signifies various things. For instance, like you have the sun, which is a significator of the father, and the moon is a significator of the mother. You have the Mars, the significator of your siblings or your friends. You have Jupiter, who is a significator of your mentors in life. Mercury could be a significator of your uncles, your aunts in life. Your cousins also can be Mercury. You even have Venus, the significator of your spouse in general. So your partner in life, relationship, energy, and all that. And then you have Saturn, the significator of elders in life, people who are also can be your elder siblings or elder relatives and so forth. And then finally, you have Rahu and Ketu, which can represent an entire generation. Like you might have Rahu, the representation of a children's generation, or Rahu can be your grandparents as well. So both Rahu and Ketu can indicate various sets of grandparents also at the same time. So it's a very interesting set of understanding to see. And so, however, now, when you get into Jyotisha, suddenly you begin to see that, okay, you know what, sun can be government, sun can also be gold, sun can also be wheat, or sun can also be the power, and so forth. Sun can be mantras, for instance. Sun can be the power of shastras, and so forth. Sun can indicate anything containing spiritual power. Now, what's going on here, right? So, like you thought sun was his father, but now you have many other aspects attributed to sun. And funnily enough, and this aspect of connecting the various karakas is kind of lost. So this is where we have to have a deeper understanding of the archetypes and so forth and all that. Now, quite often what happens is that people who have challenges with the sun energy in their life, if the consciousness of sun is not well developed within their being, then the energies of sun will not be as much present. So, say someone who is actually having, and an astrologer will be quickly able to see that. If you have an afflicted sun, in astrology terms, if your sun is with a malefic planet, if it's in a not so great house, like the sixth house, eighth house, or 12th house. Or if it's like with Rahu Ketu axis and so forth. Or if it's in a getting the aspect of challenging planets and so forth, immediately an astrologer is able to see, okay, the sun is afflicted, this native can have problems with his father and authority figures and so forth. Or with the government, they might have a problem with the king of the land, which is the government, who is the president of the land, they might have a problem with that. That kind of thing you can see going on, which is the affliction with sun. But at the same time, you'll also see, now this is something you see through observation, these natives might have gluten allergies. These natives might not be comfortable wearing gold. Like gluten allergies, right? They are not consuming gluten and all that, which is sun is linked with gluten and wheat, as I mentioned. They might not like wearing gold. They might not want to be involved with the government. They hate the government or whatnot, and so forth. So you're seeing, and of course, on top of that, they're having challenges with their father as well. Their father figures in life, there is a challenge. So this is a very fundamental understanding. So here, it's a very important aspect. So you have your human, you can say you have your 3D kind of karma, your 3D kind of world, which is basically like you have your parent, the in the sun in the 3D world would be like your father, the authority figure, the government, um, the gold which you carry. Now, sun is also interestingly your mantras, as I mentioned. So, quite often, people with an afflicted sun, if the sun is not well placed in the chart, they might initially have some tough time with mantras. That's the other way which you see going on. And or when they're trying to do mantras, they are unable to sustain it. They like to put more effort to maintain it, and so forth and all that. However, the moment they begin to fix things with their father, so like with father figures in their life, if they're trying to make peace with that aspect of life, you begin to see that, the mantras are flowing much more easily, the money is coming very easily, the gold is coming much more easily, and so forth. And so and slowly, when you actually begin to work on yourself, now this is a other deeper layer of the sun, as it's called, the internal aspects of the understanding of the planets. So sun also indicates yourself at the same time. So if you start to do anything that can improve your self-confidence, you begin to see that if you like to take care of yourself better, you are taking care of your health, which is also indicated by sun. You actually put more attention to your health and well-being. You are beginning to focus more on yourself rather than upon others. So then you are beginning to improve your sun also at the same time. All astrologers understand this aspect also. So now one of the easiest way from a Jyotisha perspective to improve the sun is basically to meditate upon the rising sun, or you use the energy of the rising sun, the bright red orange sun. You just meditate upon that for the first 15 minutes of sunrise. It's a very powerful thing to meditate actually, because you see that you're absorbing the energies of the sun upon yourself, and more importantly, the energies of self is also increasing. So that's the other big thing. So here, fundamental understanding is that if you have a problem with sun in one area of your life, it will play out in all other areas of your life as well. If you have a challenge accepting yourself, if you have a challenge of self-confidence and not believing in yourself and all that, which is also sun, that will also be affecting. Potentially, you might have gluten allergies. Potentially, you might have challenges with getting gold. Potentially, you might have challenges in your career, because sun is also linked with your career action. So quite often, if you want to, sun gets directional strength in the 10th house, and sun is also direct significator of the career as well, the 10th house also. So you see that. So again, so if the native decides to work with the gold, for instance, it's usually people, since there was a time of having gold being taken away by the government. In the USA, at least, not many people wear gold. But in older culture, you still see a lot of people wearing gold.
Mhm.
Like in India and all that, women are fully
Mhm.
covered in gold and all that, and it's a pretty normal thing actually. So, so now, interestingly, if the native is having a problem with gold, they might actually have a problem with sun as well. But the moment they connect themselves with gold energy, like they start wearing gold, they connect with gold and so forth, you begin to see that the sun energy, their confidence in themselves is also increasing. So now this is very interesting. So if you deeply think about sun, we think about sun as a graha, it signifies various things. But then and then sun also signifies self also, and all that. So, and you have the, let's put it this way, a three-dimensional understanding of what sun could mean in our life. So sun, as I mentioned, is career. Sun can be the money you have. Sun can be the power or the authority you have. Sun can also be the respect that you get from someone else. So the respect you give to yourself also. All that kind of thing is linked with sun. However, a very important aspect to recognize that the moment you look into the archetypal energy of sun, now you are actually beginning to access a deeper consciousness aspect of the sun. And having that consciousness approach or aspect of sun helps in improving that sun in a deeper way. So what is evoking that sun consciousness, right? So when you, and this is where certain energetic practices to improve that consciousness can help you out a lot. And this requires you to work at the archetypical level. It's a very, very important point. So if your consciousness of sun is lacking, which is quite often seen in the chart, an astrologer would prescribe remedies, chant the sun mantras, meditate upon the rising sun, have a routine just like the sun, become more like the sun. Right? So you're embodying more of that energy of the sun within yourself so that you can actually, express that energy even healthier actually. So that becomes a very, very, very important point. So the other aspect here is that you have to recognize that sun is not just like the three-dimensional aspect of what it signifies, like what sun would signify in our own lives. There is a four-dimensional aspect of the sun. There might be a five-dimensional or a higher dimensional aspect of the sun, which is where these gods and goddesses linked with the sun archetype would show up. So, for instance, sun is the king in the human land, the leader of the leader of the people, or political leaders, or people whom you would consider as your bosses and authority figures and all that. Now, sun can actually be, as I mentioned, sun can actually be the leader in a higher dimensional world, the leader of the gods. So the leader so gods do not exist in a three-dimensional world, they are existing in a higher dimensional space than us. So for instance, the leader of the gods would be Shiva in the Vedic pantheon. However, the same leadership energy is carried by other gods in other pantheons. So in the Roman pantheon, the leader amongst the gods was Jupiter. Or like in the Greek pantheon, which would be the equivalent would have been Zeus, actually. Now, the equivalent of sun energy in the Norse pantheon could have been the god Odin, actually. Now, what interestingly, one in the Vedic astrology scheme of things, one of the suggestion or the recommendation is always to you have a problem with sun, connect with the energy of Shiva, is what they usually say. So then what happens is that your three-dimensional karma, your three-dimensional flow of energy is significantly improved when your consciousness is beginning to be linked with the energy of Shiva. So when you're doing spiritual practices, you're bringing the vibration of Shiva into your life. You're chanting Om Nam Shivaya regularly. So you're kind of offering milk or water upon the Shivalinga regularly. And then say you, on top of that, you're also meditating upon the rising sun. You're meditating more and more upon that. You're having a consistent practice of meditating upon a bright orange sun as it's rising. Slowly and steadily, you will begin to see your worship of Shiva, which is a god, king of the gods. Shiva is considered to be the Devadi Deva. He is the supreme among the gods, actually. And he is usually linked with the sun aspect, as I mentioned, and so forth. Now, the moment when you start connecting with Shiva, the moment when you start connecting with sun energy, the Surya, the biggest sun in our lives, the visible sun of in the skies as well, on a routine fashion, you will slowly begin to see your self-confidence is beginning to increase. The way how you interact with other authority figures will also start to improve. You will begin to see your leadership aspect. You start to become more responsible for in your life. You start to take responsibility for whatever is happening in your life, and part of that will also go down to the way how you are interacting with people, your aspects of life. You might be willing to wear more gold, and you might even finally not feel that bad about gluten as well. you know, and I've seen changes like that happen also. So it makes you think. So here, what is happening is that you are connecting with a higher dimensional expression of the sun, and you are inviting that archetype of the sun through your consciousness. You're having a ritual in place. You are doing a subconscious modification. You're inviting those energies at your subconscious levels through doing regular rituals of mantras, through giving offerings, or even connecting with that archetype and so forth. So this is a very important point. So connecting with the archetype of sun on a regular basis, something that you would consider supreme to yourself, superior to yourself. Now, a really important thing to recognize that anytime you're working with a god or goddess or any particular higher dimensional forces, you have to have that in mind that you're kind of inviting those energies into yourself. You're kind of activating those energies within you as well, which is a very important thing to recognize. So it's a process of inviting those energies again and again. The act of ritual is a very direct way of inviting these archetypical forces in your consciousness so that those energies can flow much more easily in your life. Those aspects of rituals, those time when you're investing into your mantra chanting, or the time you're investing into meditating upon these energies, or the simplest act of rituals, giving an offering towards these particular gods or goddesses can slowly invite those energies directly into your life as well. Now, this is a very important point. And I've seen a lot of people, when they start to do the simplest rituals with these archetypical forces, and the pantheon does not matter at all. Like you could, the one of the big motivation for me to talk about this topic today. I had a client actually, someone who was like a single mother and who was struggling a lot. Now, the thing this particular client had to go through was that, of course, she's struggling. She's having challenges with her life. She initially tried to go the artist path, did not succeed. However, she wanted a relationship actually. So she was talking about relationships. So I encourage her to, you know what, the best thing you could do is to basically invite a relationship archetype in your life, find out any gods or goddesses you would connect with, try to identify a relationship energy that you would want to replicate in your life. Now, the thing which she went for was that she said when the next time when we met, she actually she wanted a relationship as a strong bond which Persephone had with Hades. So if you know the story of Persephone and Hades, apparently the story goes that Hades had kidnapped Persephone all the way to the underworld and he did not allow her to leave. And but Persephone eventually fell in love with Hades and still decided to stay in the underworld itself. That's the story at least, right? So in the Greek story. Now, interesting thing is that what she ended up doing was that she basically ended up brought in the statues of Hades and Persephone, and she started to have a ritual with this particular these energies. So she started to give a ritualistic offering of like the elemental offering was given. So elements would be fire, water, earth, air, and ether. So fire was basically you would light a candle. Water you would offer a bottle of water. Earth would be like food offering. Any kind of fruits was given, and air was basically incense. So she would basically light a candle, light an incense, offer a glass of water, and offer food. So the four elements were offered, and occasionally flowers would be offered. So whenever she could, she would offer flowers as well. So she would actually do these. She did these rituals for 2 3 months. Eventually, she ended up manifesting a relationship. Now, the guy was like Hades, actually, in the sense that the guy did not want to label it as a relationship, but the guy was there, so that kind of thing was going on. So you could see it was like a very stable thing which she attracted into her life, which was a great thing to see. And the only thing she did was that she basically did the rituals kind of thing. She did the rituals in terms of like she tried to connect with the archetypal energy of the romantic kind of energy in her life. She basically established the rituals, and then the moment those rituals was established as a daily practice, slowly that consciousness began to be integrating this particular energy through the ritualistic aspect. Those energies eventually manifested in her life. Now the same can be done with other energies. Now, next time when I met her, she wanted to improve her career. So I said, well, you want the king of the gods. So you want to have the king and queen god as archetype right now. So I encourage her to get like the Jupiter and Juno archetype. So which was the king of the gods, and then of course that was Jupiter and Juno, or the Zeus and Hera, as you would call it. And then she also ended up getting Apollo because Apollo was also the god of health for her. So, and she was working in a vitamin store at that point in time. Now, interesting thing that was going on was that when she started again, her altar expanded. she had like these gods whom she started giving offerings to again. So now, of course, now anytime you have an altar, you should basically make sure the couple gods should be in the middle. Like Jupiter and Juno should have been in the middle, and Hades and Persephone is also in the middle. And if you have an independent male god, the male god should be in front of your left hand, and the female goddess should be in front of your right hand. That is how you ideally arrange the thing. Basically, you are kind of ensuring that the right side of the altar is when the altar is facing you, the altar's right side is your left hand side, and that side should be occupied by masculine energies. And the feminine energies, the altar's left hand is the feminine side of the altar, which is in front of your right hand. That should be occupied by the feminine energies. And in the middle is the union of both. So you have the husband and wife god or the couple gods in the middle. So that's how you would ideally arrange your altar actually. So she started offering to Jupiter and Juno and to God Apollo at this point in time. Now, again, 3 months later, she became the leader of the team in that vitamin store, and which was great. Eventually, she ended up pursuing like one of these medical transcription courses. Now, remember, the king of the gods would actually force you to learn. Jupiter is a god of intelligence. So you're giving the offerings to intelligence. So Jupiter is a god who would really like you to learn also, who would really like you to expand your intellect. You have to study something, right? So that is a Jupiter and Juno thing. So she found that just by maintaining that ritual to Jupiter and Juno as well, she ended up signing up for this course in the university. She ended up finishing that course, and now she had a big career opening happening. So this was the power of rituals and archetypes. So you are seeing that kind of thing going on. And now some people come and say they are lacking strength energy in their life, or say they are unable to emotionally connect themselves, they are unable to be in a emotionally nurturing place themselves. Then of course, from a Graha perspective, you immediately can say you have to connect with the moon archetype or the moon goddess archetype. The equivalent of that would be the moon which we see in the night time, and meditating upon the moon is a very powerful way to heal ourselves, to nurture ourselves, to emotionally calm down ourselves, and all that in a very powerful way. And you will quite often see the archetype of the moon, which would be usually the goddess archetypes, the mother goddess archetypes. Usually the goddesses who have children in the pantheon. So in the Vedic pantheon, of course, that is Parvati. Parvati is the mother goddess actually. So ideally you would have Shiva and Parvati, and then their children are Ganesha and Kartikeya. Of course, they have other children also. So for instance, the famous goddess Bala is considered to be a child of Parvati. The goddess Kali, there are traditions where they consider goddess Kali to be a child of Shiva and so forth. And of course, Shiva, the Parvati is linked with uh, Kali as well in a different way. But goddess Kali is also considered as a Shiva Putri or Rudra Sudhi as it's called. Child of Shiva kind of aspect is also there going on also. So these particular specific archetypes can help you out with that. So if you place in a moon goddess, you place in a mother goddess, you place in the queen goddess in your altar, you basically establish a ritual, you meditate upon the archetype, you invite those energies in you, or you basically engage in a ritual. Now, the law of karma applies even with superior forces. Whatever you give will eventually come back to you. So, when you have an altar practice, which is one of the fundamental ways how you're working with the law of karma, whatever offerings you give to the gods or superior archetypes of energy, that should come back to you depending upon a level, depending upon your own capacity to absorb that, and depending upon the level of offering you're giving. So when you're giving a ritualistic offering, if you're doing it mechanically, you're going to get mechanical results. But if you're doing it intentionally, you are going to get intentional results. That's the other thing that also happens. You have to put in your emotional energy into it. You have to be putting your intention into it. You have to be fully focused on the ritualistic aspect. And when you give the offering, and then finally when you're actually connecting with the emotional energies, like you're allowing that space to connect. You're also approaching a meditation kind of thing upon that energies also. Absolutely. So basically, what I encourage people, just light an incense, give the offerings, meditate upon that energy, allow that energy to come in. And quite often, you will see when offerings are given to specific deities, very specific kind of ideas are coming your way. So you need to connect with the energies further. So when you give an offering to Jupiter, or you give an offering to Apollo, or to Juno, or if you give an offering to Persephone, whoever it be you are giving an offering to, and you'll see the moment you're giving an offering, specific kind of thoughts will come. It's like it will never be like a thought that is generic. I should do this. Maybe you could explore that. Maybe I can try out this new thing, or maybe I should talk to that guy or talk to this girl or something. Whatever it be would actually come your way. And that's very interesting. So that's why it's important to be meditating. Once you give the offering, allow the wisdom to be coming into your mind as well. So you have to meditate upon the energies that you're trying to connect with as well. It's the simplest thing. There's nothing more than it's the simplest thing anyone could do. And meditating, just allowing meditating until an incense basically goes off is the easiest thing anyone can do. And it can be the archetype. Now, the other thing is that you have to, whatever energies you want in your life, that will be the god or goddess that should be on your altar. So if you want a loving family, as I mentioned, you have to have a father and mother god archetype in your altar. If you want to have strength as a warrior, as an athlete, as a someone who is conquering territories, you need to have a warrior god energy. So this is where warrior gods like Hercules, or you could have other warrior gods like Hanuman or Kartikeya, or even goddess Kali, who is a warrior goddess. You could just have them on your altar. You are just giving them the energy. You place the exchange in place. Of course, if you know mantras, if you know prayers for the specific gods and goddesses, that's even superior. So you are actually chanting their prayer, you're inviting those energies into your life, and that can be a very powerful way to improve those energies even further also. Because you are now, when you say the prayer, those vibrations are also getting built up, which will also help you out a lot. If you want the energy of writing or business, usually you would bring in Hermes or you would bring in Ganesha, at least to improve the writing aspect and so forth. Ganesha definitely helps out in many ways. So many people would also invite the energy of Mercury or Hermes, as I mentioned. So he was a great god who would write. Now, there is a famous in the Egypt. Now, the Egyptian pantheon is also very much something you can work with. You can work with the god Ra for sun, the god Thoth for moon. All that. That is also one more thing you can see. There's also the various other Egyptian warrior deities like Bastet and all that, Sekhmet and all that, which are very powerful deities like that. But again, it's the same force of consciousness, the same higher dimensional force which you're connecting with. The Indians might have called that god, that and same energy Kali. The Egyptians might have called that same energy, or Durga might have been what Bastet or Sekhmet could have been. Egyptians might have called that energy Bastet and Sekhmet. So it's also equally powerful when you connect with the archetypes that you feel linked to. So if you feel drawn to Egypt, you feel drawn to the Greek pantheon or Roman pantheon or Norwegian pantheon, connect with those energies. That's what, and potentially what is happening is that your DNA or your ancestors who carried your DNA might have already established link with those gods and goddesses. So that might be why those specific names, those specific kind of energies is coming your way much more easily. And which is a big thing as well. Quite often, if the ancestors have done the job and say your ancestors, you have Egyptian blood, or you have Greek blood, or you have Italian blood, or say you have some blood from Scandinavian blood and all that, Scandinavian DNA in you. And so then when you connect with the Scandinavian god, suddenly you're getting your praise fulfilled. Suddenly, if you connect with Italian gods or goddesses, if you are Italian by blood, suddenly you begin to see connecting with ancient Italian archetypes, Italian mythological archetypes is much more superior for you compared to connecting with a Vedic god or gods, which can be. Now, if you're Indian, definitely if you connect with Vedic gods and goddesses, that can be powerful. But in some cases in India also, like you might find if you come from South India, other archetypes are in South India. If you are coming from East India, like you might have other archetypes. If you are in West India, you might have other archetypes. Same thing going on, but the gods and goddesses which are present there are different. So similar to that. That's also one more thing to be mindful about. And believe me, when you connect with these superior archetypes of these higher dimensional forces, a lot of changes can come. And it requires you to invest time and effort toward this thing. Now, I mentioned about Sun, Moon, Mars, and Mercury archetypes of all. Then the gods of knowledge, gods of wisdom, like in the Vedic pantheon, it is goddess Saraswati. However, in the Greek pantheon, it would have been Athena, or it could have been Minerva, the goddess of knowledge, actually. Connecting with those particular gods could be very powerful for you to invite those same archetypal forces within your consciousness, and those corresponding energies would flow much more easily. And then you would actually have the other deity, like Venus. The Venus is the goddess of love. And now Jupiter is also considered to be a god of knowledge, actually. So Jupiter can also be honored for knowledge. Very, very powerful deity to attain knowledge as well. If you want more love in your life, you have to have a love, the goddess of love in your life. So you would have to have a statue of Aphrodite. And so now, interesting thing is that now there is a very famous statue of goddess Aphrodite in which the arm is cut off. And people get the replica of a cut off arm statue instead of getting a full statue of goddess Aphrodite. A big mistake. If you get a statue of Aphrodite with the cut off arm, your love life or your relationship life will have a cut off arm. That's a challenge. The person is not putting in effort. So whatever energy is happening in your altar will be reflected in your life. Actually. And that is something you'll see. Again, because the higher dimensional forces are gathering the altar, and those energies will kind of spread in your own three-dimensional world of sorts, which is what will happen also. So once you have goddess of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, or the goddess of the arts. So Saraswati is the goddess of arts. Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. When you connect with these gods and goddesses, when you have them on your altar, slowly you begin to see things improve. And again, it could be the simplest offering. The moment now the if you have a statue of a deity, no matter what, always the encouragement is to have give food offerings regularly. If you have a picture, even just lighting a candle and offering incense is easier. But if you have a statue, now it's a three-dimensional manifestation of that archetype in your altar. So it becomes very important for you to make sure an exchange is given, an energetic exchange is maintained in a 3D way. That's why the additional elements of food offering becomes must. Now, food can be anything. Food can be fruits usually, anything that is sweet. Now, if you give spicy food to a sweet goddess of Aphrodite, she's not going to take it. She would want grapes, she would want sweets, things like that. You would see that. Now, at the same time, you might have Saturn and deities. Saturn and deities could be Cronus, or I would say Cronus per se, but maybe Saturn himself. Saturn and deities could be like, Hanuman and all that. Saturn and deity can be very fierce deities, like Bhairava, or Saturn and deities could be, um, let's put it this way, Saturn and deities could be um, gods of control, like goddess Kali can be linked with Saturn, for instance. She's a more easier thing to you can work with. There are other Saturn deities who are the old gods, as they call it. Now, in the Chinese pantheon, you will find many elders, or the three elders, as it's called. Very easy Saturn forces. There's an elder with the wealth. There's an elder with fertility. There's an elder with wisdom. So you find those kind of same three kind of energies being linked. Those are the three elders, or the three mortals are very famous in the Chinese pantheon, which can be work. And quite often you will see they're carrying the elderly energy. They have their long beard and all that and so forth. Something you see going on. So continuing with the elderly forces kind of thing can be very good from that perspective. Rahu and Ketu are interesting. Rahu and Ketu are really the guardian deities, the guardian energy of a particular world. So you want to enter into the world, a particular world and so forth. Many times these guardian deities are Rahu and Ketu. So the Anubis god, the god in the Egyptian pantheon, you had Anubis was the guardian of the underworld. So he was like, he would make sure things would happen, function easily on the underworld. So it said that the god Thoth would become God Thoth during the daytime and he would become Anubis in the nighttime. So that is also an interesting thing you see, which is almost equal to Shiva. Shiva would basically be like linked with the sun in the daytime, and in the nighttime he would be linked with Bhairava. He is the guardian and the deity of the moon. So that's the other aspect you see going on. So there are these guardian deities also, can be female guardian deities also. So goddess Durga is a control of the Rahu energy. She is definitely linked with entering into protecting and all that. So there's a lot of knowledge which she protects in a big way kind of thing happens. Ketu can be linked with again another guardian deities. Now Ganesha is considered to be the entry point in general. So Ganesha in essence he becomes like a guardian of knowledge in many ways. So Ganesha also has a guardian component now. We can also be linked with Ketu. However, it can be the archetype of Ketu, which is something you can connect. And believe me, when you connect with these archetypal forces, and if you slowly look into the stories of the kings, so the stories of the knowledge carrying teachers, or you could have a spiritual teacher, typically when you have a guru kind of energy you want in your life, you would bring a statue of a great guru, like Shuddhi Sai Baba or something. Now, Shuddhi Sai Baba was a very famous kind of guru-like energy in India. So many people, even a lot of Brahmins, worship him like as if he is a god. And apparently their prayers get fulfilled and all that because he was a human being who attained enlightenment, and he was amongst us, relatively closer to us in time. So things like that, there are aspects of energies you can connect like that. But more importantly, if you connect with the archetypes of grass, but in a divine fashion, it has to have, they have to have a shape. This is where the rituals become important. Now, say you are an athlete, you are like a football player. So you want to be a great football player. Now, one of the normal thing any American kid would do is that they would have a poster of the football player as they are in their bedroom. They would want to aspire to become like the athlete and all that is what they would do. So if you're a fan of Tom Brady, you would have the Tom Brady poster, and basically you'll spend time looking into him. I want to be like him all day long. He's in a bedroom kind of thing after, right? So that's the thing we would do. You like certain rock stars, you would put the music which they are actually you would have your own favorite rock stars or favorite artists on your wall, and eventually you try to sing like them, or you like to perform like them, or display the confidence like them, and whatnot. The same principle is basically what is happening in God. Very simple. You are connected with the energies that you want in your life. So, very important thing. The final takeaway I want to put in here, places here, is that definitely everyone, no matter who they are, at whatever level they are at, I would always encourage them to connect with an archetype they want the energies of whom they want in their life, and it has to have a ritualistic side to it. You have to have a time where you're spending time connecting with that archetypical energy for you. And believe me, the ritualistic aspect of having an altar and offerings and so forth enhances it significantly. And now the big thing that will happen, you will see, is that you're literally connecting with the higher dimensional forces which the ancients have recognized. And the moment you connect with those forces, your own dimensional world, your own three-dimensional world begins to significantly improve radically. And believe me, like I said, and I've seen this particular thing happen too many times. The moment, so you are lacking love, bring in you lack a feminine energy in your life, connect with a feminine goddess. You want a masculine energy in your life, connect with a masculine goddess, and it has to be a ritualistic thing. It has to be like a can be like an exchange which you're offering. You're offering the elements to the same archetype. Then the same energy of that higher dimensional force will show up as the four elements. Someone who's literally will manifest as a being in front of you actually with time. And more importantly is that when you connect with this archetype, you should be willing to let go of your limitations as well. So if someone believes that I will never be rich, you should be let go of that. You should be willing to work on it. You should be willing to invite those bigger manifesting or abundance kind of energy in your life, actually. So this is a big thing I want to say. And quite often, one of the big things you'll see is that, say you start to establish a relationship with a king god of a pantheon. Suddenly you will see that you're actually improving the energies with your own father, which is sun in your life. You'll start to get more gold. You might have a good thing going on with the government. You might accept the government for who it is. You might have a good thing with self-confidence. You will actually self-aware more importantly. And so forth. You start to connect with the queen goddess, the moon archetype. Now you are actually having a female energy support in your life. You are improving your relationship with your mother-in-law, which is definitely all the childhood trauma and all that significantly gets improved upon. And more importantly, you are actually having a healthy influence of everyone in your life. Whoever is linked to you in your life, whoever is interacting with you, you'll actually have a better kind of emotional thing going on, much more easy. So it becomes very important. And quite often I've seen even great people who become extremely successful at whatever level they are at, they always have one ritual which they are doing, which is allowing them to connect with their desired archetype on a regular fashion. The moment you give it a structure and form of art, now no celebrity is going to tell you that they have pantheon of gods or they have an altar. No one is going to share that. No one is going to share that. But the reality is that they do. Many of them actually do. Actually, they are doing a lot of spiritual practices they have done that to get to where they are at. So they even say even Beyonce once gave a performance as a goddess in one of her music videos. Actually, literally was embodying one of these African goddesses. So someone to understand the occult world immediately can see what is happening there. So she was embracing her own goddess because she was potentially working with the same goddess. Very easily you can see that kind of thing going on. And so forth. So this is a big thing, Katya. I want to share this understanding of archetypes and how it can be linked with the higher dimensional gods and goddesses. And when you when you begin to connect with them deeply, how everything that archetype represents in your three-dimensional world begins to slowly improve. And it's very important to have a ritualistic practice like that. Now, a question can be asked, why can't I work about myself? What if I don't believe in these gods? Well, you have to have that belief actually. If you want to overcome your limited life, if you feel your life is limited, then you have to have a belief that there is a superior kind of aspect which can come through and so on. And quite often the subconsciousness is a very powerful aspect of our mind and our reality, which we are not tapped into yet. This is why you have to connect with the higher dimensional energy and you have to have a subconscious process with it. So these energies are kind of entering the subconscious kind of thing and so forth. Or great sports stars or the great thinkers or great leaders in our life, whomever we aspire to be, we spend time looking at for them or connecting with their energy. The moment you have a divine thing, the moment you have time spent in front of your altar as very sacred space in your home, where you're actually maintaining that energy, you will be amazed. So that's a big thing, actually. And the moment when you establish that, the moment when you give the offerings, you spend time in meditation, you will literally see the kind of thoughts that will come at that location will become extremely powerful that there won't be any mistake. So you'll exactly know now. The moment when you connect with, now usually people ask me, should I give offerings to an entire offering to a deity or should I split the offerings to individual deities whom I have? Depends upon what you want. If you want a specific thing from a specific god, then you might have to give specific offering to that deity as well. That is also something I would encourage. So this is what I want to share, Katya. Now, like this particular way of understanding the archetypal forces, especially the superior archetypes of the grass through gods and goddesses, and how it can be linked with our life. And as I mentioned, it can literally open up a lot in anyone's life. So I just want to share that. Now, did you have any questions or what I shared, Katya? Any questions what you think the viewers might have or anything like that?
Well, I just have some observations.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The past year, I've been working, more in person with people. And I also do tarot and oracle cards as well. And I like to do what's called the combination reading, right? I start with tarot and then I take those themes. We look at what's going on in the chart and they always mirror each other. And then at the end, I'll pull an aromatherapy card for them. And as you know, I work with aromatherapy in the Navagraha and the plant families. And it amazes me how you can see the Navagraha all around you in the plant world. And so you were talking a lot about the sun. And the sun is the citrus family. And there are secondary Navagrahas that can help, like the secret helper for the sun is Jupiter. So you would want to pull from the resinous, things that are resinous like frankincense, myrrh, amber. They help the sun as well. But it's the magnetic attraction that blows me away. Like I would do a psychic fair, and at the end, I would do uh, 16 readings in one day. Imagine that, looking at 16 charts. Boom, 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 boom. Every time we would pull the card for the aromatherapy at the end, they'd say, "Oh, I'm already doing that. I just bought that, or I've been doing that for months." Or, "Oh, I can't stand that." And that's the magnetic field working, right? And so you are either attracted to the remedy that you need, or you are repelled by it, which means you need it because we don't want to take our medicine, right? But it would blow me away. So, like for instance, and at this shop, I would read for anyone that was like 12 and up. And of course, if they were a minor, they have to sign a consent form and their parent has to be there, right? But I particularly remember this one little girl, and she's very bright, very smart. But because of that, she was getting bullied. And at night, she would have a lot of, um, fears and anxiety and nightmares. And at the end, she pulled the lemon card, and lemon is light. And I said, "You need the light." I said, "Are you afraid of the dark?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, honey, you got to get outside. You need some vitamin D, right? You need some sunshine, some fresh air. Get yourself exhausted, and you will sleep much better. And that's, I find a problem with a lot of these kids is that they just don't get outside enough and get enough sunlight. And so that's a big part of the anxiety. But it just blows my mind how we're already doing what we should be doing, or we're rejecting it, right? Like for me, I don't like the taste of fennel seeds or caraway, you know? Um, and but that's really good for some of the health problems I have. So of course I don't want to take my medicine, right? But that's how we can see the Navagraha around us in the material world. And also it appeals to our senses, right? The oils. Um, and so just, paying attention to what we like and what we don't like in food and scent and all of that. Yeah.
No, that's great. So definitely one thing, as I mentioned, is that if you do connect with definitely, as you mentioned, with the material world, look at what you're drawn to, look at what you're avoiding. That will give you a great clue. But believe me, when you actually connect with the an archetypal force, like you're connecting with the energy which you want. So as you mentioned, if the child went out more, that was helping the child more deeply. Like so, when the child went out to the sun and all that, you could see things improve significantly and so forth. So that's a big reason why in Indian households you see like children are recommended to chant mantras of Goddess Saraswati at a young age, or children are recommended mantras of God Ganesha at a young age, and you see the kids who do that, they do quite well, or they because they're already investing time to connect with these gods and goddesses and so forth. And quite often, one of the things that happens is that as you connect with these archetypes, you see that. Now, of course, definitely the impact on the material world is there, but we all could use some extra help. And the moment when you connect with these particular archetypal forces, you might be surprised at the kind of help you could actually access. It's like you have to go through it at least once to experience the results. And once you experience the result, there is no going back. Once you've seen how it works, there is just no going back, which is what happens to most of us actually, like whether it be through astrology or something else. Like same thing exists also the archetypal forces also in general. And of course, what I shared here is a very brief but a very concise kind of summary of sorts. Each of what I said has its own depth. You can take entire classes. There's like years you can spend on everything which I shared. But something to understand actually. There's a fundamental understanding that should be in place no matter what. And as you correctly said, maybe the person who is lacking sun might reject the citrus family. They hated having the oranges in their life or whatnot, right? That kind of thing. They might potentially not be great with those flavors also. But at the same
Mm.
time, when they begin to connect with those flavors, when they work with those flavors, or when they begin to get those fragrances in their life, then slowly you see an aspect of their life is improving. However, the same person went out to the sun, or if the same person had a routine of the sun, more energies are coming into their life. If the same person had a ritual with the sun, like god or goddess, it's a superior energy that will come into life, and so forth. So it's as simple as that.
Mhm.
And that's a great thing I would encourage actually, no matter what. So it's a, let's put it this way, the moment you realize that uh, in this kind of way of doing things, and in India, one of the things you would do is that if you were to start an enterprise, you would actually go to the god of that enterprise first, get that god's blessing, and then you would start your enterprise, which is a very normal thing. So if you wanted to start with a building, actually, so if you want to start in a construction project, you go to the goddess of the earth, get that goddess's blessing, and then you would, of course, appease Ganesha as well, and then you would start with the project, and you'll see the project goes very easily. In fact, that is how the moment when you have that particular way of looking at things, you'll be amazed at how smooth your projects go in and all that. And when you have, so what is happening is that you're intentionally connecting with superior archetypical forces and you're allowing those energies to come into your being. And that will also help in taking care of a lot of things, actually. And something I've seen that works a lot. Now, normally, uh, it's a very easy way. Same thing would apply to even accessing knowledge also. So if you were to learn medicine or learn the healing arts, you would actually connect with the gods of healing. You would take their blessings more frequently, and only after that would you actually begin with this thing. Now, this practice still is maintained in the the musical arts. So you always have to get the blessing of Saraswati and Ganapati actually, and then only then do you begin the art class and so forth, which is a pretty amazing thing to see. So you see that understanding is already there in ancient cultures or older cultures kind of thing. They have recognized the forces and the rituals and so forth. The moment you invite those forces, believe me, a lot more things can be accessed.
Mhm.
So it's just something you see that is present actually. And now even the Native Americans would have their own equivalents, without a doubt. They would have had their own gods and goddesses, the whether it's a buffalo woman they interacted with, or rituals to honor her, or invite the other kind of energies and so forth. Without
Mhm.
doubt, and you would see that that improved many other aspects of their life significantly. Actually,
Mhm.
similar to that, So definitely a great point on what you shared about how the people are naturally drawn to it. Or I still
Mhm.
want to highlight that archetypical idea, like how to connect with the
Mhm.
gods and goddesses, the archetypes of the energy which you would want to connect with. Similar to that.
Mhm. Yeah. And then what I do when I pull that card, I say, "Oh, lemon, this is sun. This is remedying your sun. Let's look at your sun in your chart." And her sun
Yeah.
was afflicted. I think it was combust. Her Venus was combust the sun, and
Yeah.
and then you look at the planetary cycle they're in. It all fits together. I mean,
Yeah.
it always just blows my mind. I just sit back and
Yeah.
go, "Whoa."
Yeah. That's how it usually works. Amazingly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, well, excellent. Thank you so much, Santhip G. We've missed you. I did have a
Great. Great, Katya.
request
Yeah.
on my website for you to do something with looking at the Royals charts, but that'll be for another time. I know
Yeah,
that's
sure.
not
Yeah.
your,
That time.
mundane astrology is not really your thing, but it is fun sometimes. And now that we're over this big hurdle of the US, presidential election, and whew, we can focus on some different things, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Well,
Great, Katya. Yeah.
thank you so
Yeah. Thanks.
much. And
Yeah.
until
Thanks for
next
inviting me
time,
back again. Yeah.
yes,
Great again. Nice.
namaste.